7, he's been a regular guest on Coast to Coast. He believes that government will eventually disclose. Well, he and I are at odds on that. I've told him, at no uncertain terms, will government come forward and tell us that we are being visited by extraterrestrials. They just won't do it. They fear collapse, loss of control, and everything else. Be that as it may, whistleblowers, those within government, continue to come forward to say things like Apollo 14 astronaut Edgar Mitchell, claiming that, yes, we're being visited, they do exist, and this is what's happening. So that is going on, and that's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. Now, you talk about a false flag. Project Bluebeam is supposed to be a government program where they will one day send holographic images of UFOs over major cities in the United States, much like the movie Independence Day, where we would see these craft one day and panic and say, please, government, save us, please, help us, do whatever you have to do. Then there comes martial law and more control and everything else. There's that possibility that a plan like that is there somewhere on the table, ready to be implemented. In the next year or two, probably not, but I think it's out there. But to answer that question about disclosure, it ain't going to happen. I think we're being visited. This is a vast universe. I think one is foolish to think that we are alone in the universe. As Walter Sullivan from the New York Times once wrote many, many years ago, we are not alone, and we're not. There are other inhabitants out there. They've learned different kinds of propulsion. They're not coming here the way we, zoom around in space. And they've learned how to bend space-time, and they've come here. And why not? This is a gorgeous planet. This is so teeming with life. My gosh, you go outside and you look at everything that's out there that's alive. This is a utopia. And I think other inhabitants are coming here going, this place is unbelievable. What a great place to visit.
Well, every culture out there says that's happening. I've never really gotten into those areas just because I can't get people to admit there's FEMA camps when it's in the Houston Chronicle.
Exactly.
But undoubtedly, this is a wide universe, and a lot of stuff is going on, and life was probably seeded on this planet because, you don't find a fine Swiss wristwatch out in the middle of the desert that got put together by the sands bumping up against each other. George, let's talk about a issue I've never raised with you, and then I want to get your perspective on. I know a lot of NASA people that I've seen in the films of NASA on the front control system, on NASA 1, not even in the backup. I know the fellow who ran the RCA cameras on the moon. He said, no, we were on the moon, and he even showed me his national security letters. I've known him about 15 years, Raymond Teague. And he told me some stuff privately, said he'd say it on air. Once he got on air, because he thought he had a lot of heart trouble at the time, and he's still alive, but he thought he was going to die soon, so he told me some on air. But then I've talked to other people in NASA, and they say basically there is some manipulation going on, but it's to cover up the real technologies that the U.S. government has. Look how advanced the Germans were at the end of World War II. They still say the SR-71 Blackbird's the fastest plane we've got. We see the stealth helicopter crash. But he wouldn't go all the way, but he basically said, we've been to the moon and more, and some of the stuff you saw that looked like fakery, that is just basically stuff for public consumption, but that the space program is way more advanced. Then I talked to Dr. Bob Bowman, the former head of Star Wars program, and he said, well, it's classified, but yes, we had drones in space with DU Sabo political decapitation systems, to kill major government's leaders in an hour in the 70s. Star Wars didn't really start in the 80s. So there's my preface there. What is your view on the space program? They're claiming it's basically over now. What's going on here? I
will paraphrase a coast-to-coast guest and our science advisor, Richard C. Hoagland, who heads up his own website called enterprisemission.com, of which he believes that there is another project up there in space that we don't know anything about, that is a black ops program, and that they've been up there for a long, long time. Maybe they've still gone to the moon, who knows, but that they have conducted and have continued to conduct various experiments, surveillance techniques, you name it, up there in space. There is no doubt in my mind, Alex, that with the kind of technology we possess in the United States, that we have utilized space for incredible things, and we don't, as the American public, understand or know about. I mean, is that smart? Well, let's say if I were president of this country and I needed to protect everybody here, I would probably approve some kind of black ops program as well. The danger with all of that, however, is what happens when you get someone else who is not as caring, not as thoughtful about people, but happens to be more concerned about control and manipulation and staying in office for the rest of his life. That's the problem with everything that's going on right now. I have no problems, personally, going through airport security and having them check me out and having them say, you know what, you're clean as a whistle. I feel safe on a plane when they do that. But what happens one day when that government decides, look, we're going to kick it up a notch or two. We're going to do this for control. We're going to go by their houses, and we're going to take infrared scopes of everybody inside, and they won't even know we're outside, and we can see what they're doing in their house. We can watch what they're watching on TV, and we will control everything. We know where they put their guns, so we know where to go at any given time.
That's already
the danger.
That is the danger. That's already happening. They've now, I knew about that 15 years ago. Now MIT's announcing it, but you just hit the heart of it. From the people I've talked to, and they admit that over 90% of the space program's classified military, that they early on sold it on, we've got to dominate space, we've got volunteers that are ready to die, but we can't have all these people dying in the space program in front of all the little old ladies. We'll have the public space program to fund everything, but then we'll have the real space program going on. And that's basically what I've been told by some pretty high-level people. And then Buzz Aldrin came on and said, yeah, the pyramids, yeah, something designed them. Yeah, there's an obelisk on the moon of Mars. And then I heard there was a fracas over that. I was at Charlie Sheen's house. This is a true story. Buzz Aldrin can be asked this. Because I've asked him back on, for whatever reason, even though his secretary said, oh, we love you, we like you. He's ready to come back on. Yeah, we like what you're doing. And then later he wouldn't come back on. It's been about 2 years, and I'm telling my producers, go after Buzz Aldrin. But I'm publicly bringing this out. On that interview, just type in Buzz Aldrin talks about monolith on the moon, and it'll come up. He said some really wild stuff. Never heard him say anywhere else. I'm at Charlie Sheen's house. This is like a year ago, right before the whole meltdown and all this.
Yeah.
And he goes, hold on, Buzz Aldrin's calling. We're going out to dinner in a couple nights. Too bad you're not going to be here. And he answers it. It's on record on TMZ, caught Buzz Aldrin and him at dinner a couple days after I left. Point is, Buzz Aldrin, and he goes, hold on, I'm going to put you on speaker. I got my friend here. Puts him on speaker, iPhone, sitting here outside overlooking the Hollywood Hills, Charlie Sheen's backyard in Beverly Hills. And it's Buzz Aldrin going, yeah, great. Well, sure, I heard you want to go out to eat with me. All right, because Charlie likes to go out with interesting people, to dinner. He goes, all right, yeah, sure. How about in a couple days? Let me check with, this and that. And he goes, but let me tell you something. So they talk for about 15 minutes, and he knows we're on speaker. And he says, let me tell you, in 2 months, they're going to announce water was found on the moon. And I've known this for a long time, but now I can tell you, Charlie, we'll talk about it at dinner. Yeah, they're going to claim the Indians found it. Yeah, they're going to do all this. And I'm sitting there hearing this, and I even told my wife about it, and Charlie could tell the story. And then Buzz, hung up. And then it wasn't 2 months. It was about 4 months later they announced, water found on the moon, Indians find it. So, right there, I got a window into something crazy. I'm sorry, I'm supposed to be interviewing George Noory, but, I'm asking you, what do you make of that?
Well, first of all, Buzz is a great American and one very different kind of guy. And, he took a swing at a guy who wanted him to pledge on the Bible that we never went to the moon when these guys all risked their lives to do whatever they had to do. So he's a different guy. I was on the Larry King show, Alex, with Buzz a couple of years ago, and we were going to talk about UFOs and everything else, and I'm on with a group of other people. And Larry turns to Buzz, and he says, now tell us, what did you see? And then the story had to do with, did the Apollo 11 astronauts, Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, did they see a UFO trailing them as they were going to the moon? And, Buzz just completely ignored the question and started talking about the capsule and how things work and separate and stuff. And I'm looking at Larry going, Larry, push him, get the answer, let's do it. And Buzz just never would go there. But, he's a different kind of guy, and I think the NASA guys are all different, and I keep citing Edgar Mitchell, whom I know well, and I've been to events with him, and I've sat down to dinner with him, and he tells me, he says, George, I'm going to tell you something. I haven't seen anything weird on the moon, but I'm told by people within government that we're being visited, strange things are going on, and he said, I believe these people, and I told him, and I believe you, Edgar, and that's the way it is. Ingo Swann, who was the father of remote viewing, who was set up by the U.S. government, the military, to set up a remote viewing program so we could spy on the Soviets at the time. He remote viewed the backside of the moon, and he contends that there are structures on the moon, that there are things there, and, you know, if this universe is indeed 14 billion years old, and our solar system is 4.5 billion years old, there's a high likelihood that that moon has been used as a stomping off ground, as a base. But the other thing that a lot of people don't understand, Alex, and that, you know, that's why we turn to people like Michael Cremo, forbidden archaeologist. This is an old planet. And our civilization, our humankind that we know of is merely a couple thousand years old.
Yeah, I mean, it's been around like less than a second in the scheme of time.
Exactly. I think we have had high technology civilizations that built the pyramids, that even go back beyond that probably had flying machines. In India, they talk about the Brahmanas.
Oh, no, it's all, but I mean, that's what's incredible about Buzz, and if you ever get him on, ask him about this. Hey, you were in a conversation with Charlie Sheen, Alex Jones, and again, I was just sitting there drinking coffee listening to this, but again, Buzz was saying, oh, we've always known, but we kept it secret, but now I can talk about it. It's going to come out in a few months. That was nowhere on the news. And so my point is, there was a window into Buzz Aldrin when he wasn't being guarded, admitting that they knew there was water, and then that was a big breaking national story, and I almost went on air. I told my wife, should I tell that story? And she goes, that'll sound crazy. But the thing is that the NASA knew that. Why did they let India announce it? Why did they keep it secret for 40 years?
You know what? I think they have a timetable to release information. If they go out right away and say there is water on the moon, or there are structures on Mars, people may say, well, what are we spending money to go see if there's water on the moon? And, I think that's another reason. There's an economic reason for holding back information so they can continue their budgets and their projects and keep things going. And, because to me it's a no-brainer. There's water on the moon. That's a great story. Tell us. This is not the grand deception. But I just think that they think that if we know too much, we're going to say, okay, on to the next project. No need to send this probe to the moon to look for water when you already have told us it's there. Next.
Well, here's my question, George. What else is going on? Because I've seen that on mainstream news where they play the tapes of the astronauts saying our capsule's being followed and all this stuff. And I've seen the NASA footage of, like, beams shooting into space and things flying around. I mean, the point is, what else don't we know then if they won't even tell us basic stuff? I mean, here's the thing about Aldrin. He's on the show. I'm not even bringing this stuff up. And he goes, we can find the clip, actually. He's like, yeah, who do you think built the pyramids? That stuff's all over. Yeah, that's what we're talking about. Obelisk. That's where we need to land, Alex, on that moon. And I'm like, Buzz, what? I mean, it's not even a UFO show. And maybe he brought it up because I didn't bring UFOs up. I don't know.
This is one of the things that fuels Coast to Coast, Alex. It fuels your program, too. We deal with the mysteries of the universe. People have an opportunity to sit back and think. I have physicists on all the time, and I always ask them, tell me about the Big Bang. How did some little minuscule particle blow up and we have all this mass? How did this happen? And you know what? I've still not been given a good answer. There are more mysteries out there than I think we'll ever uncover.
Well, George, scientists all the time, 500 years ago or 600, they thought the Earth was still flat. That was absolute fact.